Next up, Woolworths is a combination of a food and clothing retailer operating in South Africa and Australia. It has a market cap of 64 billion rand, a PE ratio of 14.47 and a dividend yield of 5.14%. Have you ever seen Woolies so cheap on a fundamental basis?
Yeah, I mean it's a terrible chart, isn't it?
Almost looks like the W of the Woolworths. We just need the uptick now.
Look, I mean, there is no doubting the quality of this business. It really is phenomenal quality. And no other food retailer in this country comes even remotely close to them. So that's the first point. But secondly, you know, they went into Australia in a really big way. They'd been there with Country Road and Trenery and the Witchery and stuff like that for a few years. But they went and bought David Jones a few years ago. And they've got big ambitions for Australia. And I think Ian Moy really understands that territory extremely well. It's not going particularly to plan at this point in time. And Australia is a difficult jurisdiction. They do know it well, but you've got a population there, particularly in big cities like Sydney, which are incredibly expensive and where household debt, disposable income is at nightmare levels. And these are exactly the kind of people who shop at the likes of a Woolies or a David Jones. So I think there's a vulnerability there in terms of if and when that bubble bursts, as far as Australia is concerned. Locally, I think their ability to tap into that emerging middle-class market is probably unsurpassed by any other food retailer.
Because it's aspirational.
It's incredibly aspirational. They do fantastic promotions, and people, as I say, understand the quality. However, these are all the good points. The pricing of some of the products now is just, in my humble opinion, is crazy. You know, you go into Woolies and yes, it's quality and you're prepared to pay up, but you sometimes balk at they're eye-wateringly high prices you have to pay for some of the stuff.
Some people tend to rationalize and say, okay, yes, I'm buying these bananas for twice the price, but they're going to last twice as long, so I'm not throwing anything away.
That's also true, yes, and you can't fault that, and again, it comes back to quality. So, you know, I think on the food side here, it's going to be sustainable, and it's going to be incredibly resilient even through the very tough next few years. Clothing side, we're not discussing that today. That's a different prospect. That kind of is more cyclical, comes and goes. But on the food side, it's difficult to fault them.
I do want to stick on the grocery side of things because, you know, that's obviously what we're discussing. Yeah. I think people also underestimate Woolworths' entry into almost a convenience market, you know, taking on a company like Famous Brands. So if you don't have time to go make yourself a meal, you've got a decision to make. You can get Uber Eats, you can go to Steers, you can go to Turn and Tender, or you can go to Woolworths and pick up a ready-made meal, you pop into the microwave. It still, because it's Woolworths and it's fresh, it still feels healthy-ish. You know, it's so that segment of Woolworths, I think, is also very strong and resilient.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely, Byron. And once again, it comes back to quality, and their standards are so incredibly tight that it's impossible really to fault them when it comes to that. And innovation, a very, very innovative company. I just feel that as we go down this really difficult next few years, possibility of another downgrade next year, further into junk, this type of thing, I think consumers are going to get more and more squeezed. And while we all love Woolies, while we all aspire to it, I think it may, coming back to that bit about pricing, become ever more difficult to actually do that.
Hot or not on Woolies?
I would usually be hot on Woolies. And at this kind of price, you know, you should be. But unfortunately, I think buying it now, it might be dead money for a while, so I'm not hot.
It's the first time I've heard you say that. I'm going to disagree with you on the basis that I agree with your thesis that Woolies is under pressure and times look pretty tough going forward, but I do think the share price is reflecting that. You know, dividend of 5%. So if it's dead money, at least you're getting paid 5% yield, which is pretty solid these days.
That's a fair comment.
So I'm going to remain hot on Woolies. We do own it in the hot stocks.